Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, the weekly segment in which I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Before we begin though with the Raw and Smackdown review, I do have an apology to make. A couple of months ago, I did something on this channel I rarely, if ever, do, and that is make comments and make an editorial on unconfirmed, unsubstantiated rumors. By and large, I don't like to do videos about these rumor mill kind of things because, you know, it's a lot of hearsay, it's a lot of second, third-hand information. No one really knows if it's confirmed, if it's for real or not. But, you know, a couple of months ago, I violated my rule by making an editorial on the whole Mauro Ranallo JBL controversy, the alleged bullying going on that allegedly led to Mauro Ranallo taking a leave of absence from the company and ultimately leaving WWE for a short period of time. I made, you know, a lot of claims about JBL's status as a bully. You know, many of his past indiscretions, I think, are still common knowledge, and I still stand by what I said there. But my whole stance about JBL being at fault for Mauro Ranallo leaving turns out probably is not the case, considering Mauro made that public when he first left the company, and now that he's back as part of the commentary team for NXT, it seems like, you know, the whole JBL stuff seems to be overblown. So I think I overstepped my boundaries talking the way I did about that situation, and I was wrong, and I was, you know, I feel bad that I said that sort of thing and really stoked the fires of that debate. I still believe that there is a systemic issue, culture in professional wrestling and in WWE that probably needs to be examined and looked at closer, but I don't think this issue with Mauro Ranallo and JBL is a part and parcel of that. So I wish to, you know, basically retract what I said in that editorial some months ago. So I apologize to anyone who I upset or offended over my stance on the issue, and I hope that we can all kind of move on from there. Raw in Los Angeles begins with Roman Reigns making his way to the ring, receiving his usual mixed to negative response from the crowd. He starts talking, the fans are chanting, "We want Strowman," they're booing him. He actually says, "If you give me a minute, you might like what I have to say." He says, you know, "Last week, Samoa Joe made me tap out and maybe pass out," and the fans pop, and he goes, "Told you you'd like it." I thought it was a good little Roman Reigns riff there. Roman accepts Braun Strowman's challenge to the ambulance match at Great Balls of Fire. He's cutting a promo on Braun when suddenly you hear the sound of an ambulance siren. Is Scott Steiner returning? No, it's an actual ambulance backing its way into the ringside area, or the arena, I should say. Roman goes to the ambulance. He opens the back doors. It's dark. There's no one in there. The fans boo because there's no one there. Suddenly, Braun Strowman does jump from out of nowhere and attacks Roman Reigns. They have a fight up on the stage. Roman goes for a Superman punch. Strowman blocks it and tosses Roman into the side of the ambulance, and he hits it hard. Oh my God, it was such a sick thud that he hit the ambulance. Then he comes down on part of the stage on his way down, which was also pretty scary to watch. It was just this brutal piece of violence you see here in this fight. I was thinking, I was watching this might be my favorite Roman Reigns rivalry because it's not so one-sided. It's you know, I think Roman Reigns might ultimately overcome the odds at Great Balls of Fire, but man, this has been fun to watch. Just this feud these guys have been having for months now, ever since I think Fastlane. These guys have been beating the piss out of each other, and it's hilarious. It's very entertaining to watch these two. This level of brutality that you see is kind of like, it's beyond the norm of what you normally see on WWE today. Even though there's no blood, there's still a lot of crazy bumps and spots, and I like what I'm watching here. So this is a great opening segment. Strowman looks strong. He throws Roman into the ambulance, shuts the doors, and the ambulance drives off to parts unknown, I guess. But Strowman looks very good here. Cesaro, Sheamus, and Elias Samson are in the middle of the ring. Elias is about to play a song on his guitar. Cesaro and Sheamus have headset mics on, so you think they're going to sing along with it. And before they can do anything, the Hardys music plays, and all three of them are just livid. And Cesaro and Sheamus' reaction made my night. Just watching them just look so mad and so incensed that they would be interrupted by the Hardys was awesome. This leads to a six-man tag team match with Finn Balor and the Hardys taking on Cesaro, Sheamus, and Elias Samson. Because they're in LA, the stars are out. There's a lot of celebrity cameos happening throughout the night. In particular, this match, you got Josh Duhamel, who stars in the Transformers movie, doing commentary. So you've got a four-man commentary team, and Josh Duhamel doesn't really know what he's talking about. He seems to like everything he sees, which is nice. But boy, for someone who's not a wrestler, Josh Duhamel's getting all of his shit in because he's plugging everything. He's plugging Transformers, he's plugging the buddy games, he's plugging some other stuff. I'm sure he had a lot of stuff to talk about and, you know, get off his chest here. The match ends with Finn Balor hitting the coup de grace on Cesaro after Matt hits the twist of fate on Sheamus on the outside. Jeff hits Elias Samson with a flying move on the outside as well. So he hits hits the move, and the faces win, and the Hardys and Finn do their arm motions together at the same time. It's wonderful, as they might say. My one little nitpick with this is like Finn Balor spent an awful long time on that top turnbuckle. He's there for like a full minute, it felt like, while the other guys are getting their shit in. I mean, the referee should have disqualified him right then and there. I'm kidding. Or am I? I am. After weeks of anticipation and awesome promos from both guys, we finally get our build matchup between Goldust and R-Truth, or so we think. First of all, yes, another awesome promo by Goldust preceding this. He comes out with a cameraman who at first glance I thought was Rockstar Spud. he's this little guy in a gold suit, and he's carrying a golden camera shooting the movie that is Goldust's entrance. And he's out there. R-Truth makes his way to the ring. There's no rapping, no dancing. He's all business. Gets in the ring. The cameraman's kind of in the way of the two of them. And in the distraction, Goldust cheap shots R-Truth, and he just beats down on R-Truth a lot. The match never begins. And that's pretty much it. Goldust stands tall while the little cameraman is shooting him, and R-Truth is just selling. So we didn't get that match. It was kind of disappointing on that level because we had all these weeks of build for it. And it would be kind of nice to see a continuation of the feud on Raw proper. You know, kind of something a little different than just the pay-per-view, which it sounds like we're going to be getting anyway at this rate. But yeah, it was just kind of a weird kind of bait and switch. The match itself didn't really jive with me, but again, the promo was awesome. All right, up next is this thing. It's the Miz TV with special guests, the Ball family, Lavar, Levon, and LaMelo. A lot of people outside the U.S., and quite frankly, some people inside the U.S., don't know who these people are. Why are they here? And so I did a little bit of a research on Wikipedia the night of Raw just to find out who these people are, because I barely know who they are. Turns out they're a basketball family. Levon is an extremely talented young man who played his freshman year at UCLA, got drafted last week to the LA Lakers, so he's kind of a big deal right now in Los Angeles, and his younger brothers are also very good at basketball. But really what makes the story so interesting is that their dad, Lavar, who played basketball in college and some pro football as well, is a very outspoken, braggadocious shit talker. He's a shit stirrer, basically. He's like a hype man. He's the perfect character for pro wrestling. So in a way, it kind of fits. So anyway, he's the guest on Miz TV. I don't want to go into the details of what happens. Basically, the Miz starts talking, Lavar starts talking, they talk over each other. It turns into madness. Lavar takes his shirt off and starts doing this thing with his arms, dancing around like he wants to do fisticuffs, like he wants to knock them dukes with the Miz. And all in the midst of all this madness, Dean Ambrose comes out, and while his music's playing, you hear LaMelo, the youngest of the three Ball family members there, yelling, "Beat that blank ass, beat that blank." He's yelling the N-word on a live mic in front of God and everybody. And then to finally quell this madness, Dean Ambrose says, "Oh, I have the Triple B shirts now, and they're a great endorser of Great Balls of Fire and me, and I'll have free t-shirts." Then his music plays. I'm like, that was the segment? That's where it ends? Is Dean Ambrose saying this really anticlimactic downer of a line? And then it goes to break? Oh man, that was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen. You know, I've always said it's good to not be so tightly wound to a script, you know, in WWE. It's good to be a little spontaneous, but I don't know about this. There's a difference. There's a fine line between being spontaneous and being LaVar Ball, and this was just, wow. I don't know what to say about it. It was a pretty bad segment. It was kind of like a car crash. You couldn't look away, but it was still hideous and horrifying, and at times hilarious, but still, like, I have nothing else to say about it. All that insanity naturally leads to a six-man tag team match where The Miz and his new Miztourage of Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel took on Dean Ambrose, Heath Slater, and Rhino. The Ball family, I'm sure, were like stuffed in bags and ushered out after what happened in that segment, never to be seen again. This match was fine for what it was. It got the Miztourage over as a new unit. Again, they're working together pretty well. The match ends when Bo Dallas rolls up Rhino for the 3 count after Curtis Axel decks Rhino with an elbow when the Miz distracted the ref. Yeah, not much to say about that, because really, what can you do or say that tops what just happened on Miz TV? Enzo Amore comes out to the ring and addresses what happened at the end of last week's Raw when Big Cass admitted he was the one all along who had been attacking Enzo backstage over the last few weeks, and of course ending the show on Monday night with a big boot to the face. So he calls up Big Cass. Cass comes out to the Enzo Cass music. Why, if they're broken up at this point, why is he coming out with the same music? I didn't get it. Enzo cuts a very, very passionate promo to Cass. So we're brothers, we're family. I'm not going to let this relationship, I'm not going to let you ruin what we have. We have to become tag team champions. We got to see this through to the end. Cass grabs the mic and starts off kind of coarse towards Enzo, but by the end of it, he turns around. He kind of sees the error of his ways. He apologizes to Enzo. He wants to, be back with his brother once again. They hug it out. It's a very emotional moment in the ring, so you think everything's back together and good again. Oh, but swerve, it's not, because they're back at the top of the ramp and Cass just decks Enzo with a clothesline. Military press down the ramp, so Cass was a big fat liar the whole time. Enzo comes off kind of like a gullible goof here, but still the whole segment I think as a whole was great, because again it was Enzo trying to, he was emotional, he was vulnerable, he let his guard down, and Cass was being just evil and slimy and manipulative in that way. So great heel heat by Cass in my opinion. And speaking of Cass, another interesting bit here on the other side of that commercial break, Cass comes out again to confront Corey Graves, saying, "I'd like to snap your neck for what you did last week," but Kurt Angle says, "I can't lay a hand on you. Whatever dirt you have on him must be good." So again, more intertwining of, the Corey Graves, Kurt Angle, Enzo Cass stuff. Corey Graves is the common denominator between these two storylines. Where that all fits in, still not quite sure, but again, very intriguing here. We still are waiting for the payoff for the Corey Graves, Kurt Angle mystery. Kurt Hawkins takes on WWE 2K18's Seth Rollins. Apparently it's his full legal name now in singles action. A very weird promo by Kurt at the top of this match. He goes, "Who thinks I'm going to lose tonight? Who thinks I'm going to win? Well, I guess I'll have to find out, huh?" What a weird, needless promo to say. Be that as it may, Kurt does start off strong against Seth here, hits a couple of big moves, has Seth on the ropes. Seth just, predictably turns it around, big move, big move, big move, takes out Kurt with the big flying knee finish he has now, and wins the match. That knee is not over. It's not as over as the pedigree or the curb stomp was, and I'm curious as to why that is. It's a good move, but I think it's just the fans aren't into it. They're not buying it. Is it because, maybe he doesn't do some grand gesture to signal he's going to be doing it? It just kind of comes out of nowhere. There's no build to it. I'm not sure. After Seth's victory, Bray Wyatt, the Eater of Worlds and the sleeper of his friend's couch, interrupts on the big screen. He cuts a spooky promo tying in the video game release stuff and saying he will save Seth Rollins. He will baptize him in fire again, yada, yada, yada. It's time for a Paul Heyman promo. He comes out and cuts a promo on Samoa Joe. He talks about how Samoa Joe is fearless toward Brock Lesnar, but his fear makes him a big Samoan dumbass because he's hitting cheap shot after cheap shot, but now is the time you should be fearing Brock Lesnar. So he introduces Brock Lesnar. He makes his way out, does his little hoppity hops to the left and right, but out of nowhere, Samoa Joe comes out, decks Brock Lesnar, and locks in the coquina clutch. And for the next minute or so, Lesnar's just fighting. He's trying to fight his way out of the coquina clutch. He keeps slamming Joe into the staging area, all the LED screens. They're bowing and bending as these bodies are crashing into it, but Samoa Joe keeps holding on to the clutch. Brock Lesnar's face is turning as purple as the color on his shirt. He's just like getting blacked out, but the other wrestlers come in to break up the scuffle. And yeah, again, is Samoa Joe looking very good and fearless and strong here against Brock Lesnar. Lesnar has had moments of weakness in the last year or so, especially in his feud with Goldberg, but this one feels different because Samoa Joe admittedly is not on the same level of prestige, it seems, as Goldberg. Goldberg has been built since Survivor Series as this mythical demigod, whereas Samoa Joe is just this big tough bastard. So to have Brock Lesnar kind of fall to him on a couple of occasions in the build of this match is very surprising. It's very refreshing and it's cool. It makes Samoa Joe look so credible here in this match. Whereas, with previous stuff with Lesnar, previous feuds with Lesnar, it never seems so unpredictable. But this one seems like it could be anything. The irony of Samoa Joe almost choking out this former UFC champion is not lost on me, and I wonder if that's if they're trying to send some kind of message with that booking, but it's still a really cool moment. Cruiserweight time as Lince Dorado takes on the Cruiserweight champion Neville in a non-title match. Akira Tozawa sitting at ringside behind a nice purple velvet rope dressed in a nice suit. At least he's not sitting in the front row behind the barricade like some schmuck. Pretty short and sweet match here. Lince has Neville on the ropes at one point with a couple of high-flying moves, including a plancha between the middle and top ropes. I haven't seen it done like that before. It was pretty cool. Followed by a top rope crossbody. Neville does get the upper hand again, locks in the rings of Saturn, and Lince taps out. So after the match, there's a stare down in the ring between Akira Tozawa and Neville. Then Titus O'Neil comes out. And just why are you going to have Titus O'Neil, whose character at this point seems to be directly inspired / ripped off from Lavar Ball, who we just saw earlier, and have those two not interact at all on TV. That, it seems like a missed opportunity. Granted, after what Lavar Ball did, I don't know if I want to see him again on Raw, but, at least have it. The fact that they're not interacting on TV seems like a missed opportunity. Also, it might be a coincidence, might not be, but Titus brand has now been renamed Titus Worldwide because, the Ball family, they think it's the big baller brand, so maybe they changed the name to avoid confusion. Anyway, Titus announces that at Great Balls of Fire, there's going to be a Cruiserweight Championship match that he brokered between Neville defending against Akira Tozawa, who is a new member of Titus Worldwide. So, yeah, it's interesting to see Akira in the fold of Titus O'Neil now, along with Apollo Crews. So, interesting to see where that goes. Time for some more Paul Heyman action. He's being interviewed by Charlie Caruso backstage for the second time tonight. The third segment overall for Paul E. He's sporting one bloodshot eye for some reason, and he cuts a better promo here than what he did in the ring for the Lesnar and Joe segment. He's talking about how it's not going to be Suplex City F5. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a knockdown, drag-out, dirty fight. He's really going out of his way, going above and beyond to put this match over on a whole other level, beyond what I've seen, even for Goldberg-Lesnar. I think this has been a really intriguing build, and Paul Heyman has been an integral part of that, whether verbally or physically, as it was a couple of weeks ago when Joe choked him out with a coquina clutch. Great, brilliant promo by Heyman. He even throws in a lyrical reference to the Great Balls of Fire song at the end. Main event time, a women's gauntlet match where the winner becomes the #1 contender for Alexa Bliss's championship at Great Balls of Fire. #1 is Bayley, #2 is Nia Jax. Bayley showing some aggression here for the first time in what feels like a long time here in this match, getting some moves in on Nia, including a top rope elbow drop to like the back of Nia's head, but ultimately Nia prevails here, eliminates Bayley, then in quick succession takes out Mickie James, Dana Brooke, and Emma. So finally, the last entrant is Sasha Banks. This part here, definitely the longest chapter of the Gauntlet match, but Nia just showing off her dominance at the whole thing, really overpowering Sasha Banks on multiple occasions here, frequently tossing her out of the ring and just trying to get a count out victory, but Sasha, ever resilient, keeps getting in the ring. At this point, after like the third or fourth toss, I'm like, wouldn't it just be effective just to drop a Samoan drop on her like you did with everybody else leading up to this and just put her away? Eventually, she does hit her with a Samoan drop, but Sasha gets on the apron and they fight some more there. Nia goes for another Samoan drop, but after some wriggling around, Sasha does make her way onto like the shoulders and the back of Nia Jax, takes her down with what they call a modified bank statement, but for the rest, for the part of it, I don't know if that really was a bank statement. It just seemed like a sleeper hold with like being bent backward. Anyway, Nia does eventually tap out. So Nia was in the ring for 33 minutes, is what I heard on commentary. She was in there from the beginning to the end. She was #2, but it might as well have been #1, and she's there to the very end with Sasha Banks. So after a whole half hour where she just kicks ass, she eventually just gets worn down by Sasha Banks with this big submission, and Sasha wins, becomes the new #1 contender. Angle comes out to congratulate her. Alexa Bliss comes out to confront her. She gets drop kicked by Sasha Banks, and that's how the show ends. On the one hand, I thought it was disappointing that Nia was there for the whole half hour. She went yard, and she still couldn't, put Sasha Banks away at the end when she's shown dominance to her in the past, earlier this year, in fact. So a little disappointed with that. And again, it's part of that whole syndrome they have with the way they book big people, big monsters on both brands, where it's like they're dominant, and then ultimately they don't win. Like Baron Corbin did the same thing. It's weird that they did that here, but at the same time, I get why they did it. It was a good story being told. Nia Jax worked very hard, and she was ultimately worn out by Sasha Banks. Before we move on to the SmackDown portion of the show, I do want to thank the fine folks at SeatGeek for sponsoring this week's edition of Who Wore It Better. Now, they have an app for your iOS or Android device that makes ticket buying so easy because it gathers information from all different ticket vending sites all over the place. Concerts, sporting events, WWE, you name it, you can find the ticket of your choice at a price you like from SeatGeek. There's color-coded deals, numerical deals, no hidden fees. There's never been an easier way, a smarter way, a cheaper way to buy tickets at SeatGeek. If you want to learn more, go to the link at the top of the description here to download the app. Go to the account tab once you've downloaded the app, type in the promo code Zane and get $20 back right away on your first order. SmackDown begins with GM Daniel Bryan coming to the ring, running down what's going to happen on tonight's show. Carmella and James Ellsworth quickly interrupt him, and Carmella basically reiterates what she said last week in her promo, justifying the way she won the Money in the Bank match at the pay-per-view. Then Daniel Bryan reiterates a lot of what he said in response to what she said the previous week. So a lot of regurgitation from last week's promos. I don't know why they bothered doing that. James Ellsworth interrupts and runs down Daniel Bryan some more, saying he's a coward who made up an injury to get out of wrestling. Daniel shrugs off the insult and winds up banning James Ellsworth, not just from the ringside area for the match, but from the whole arena. And then 4 local wrestlers dressed as security members grab James Ellsworth after a nice funny chase and drag him out of the building. The Hype Bros take on the Usos here in the first match of the night. If the Hype Bros win this non-title match, they'll become the #1 contenders for the Tag Team Championships. Very odd way they booked this match, because you have Zack Ryder taking the heat for the bulk of it. It goes to commercial break like they are wont to do. So you have the picture-in-picture commercial. So you've got the match happening in the corner, the commercials happening here. If you want to watch the bulk of the match, watch the commercial break, because that's where the bulk of the match happens. Literally less than 20 seconds after they come out of commercial, the match is over. Zack comes out from break, going for the broski boot. He misses it, gets knocked down, and one of the Usos, I forget which one, hits a top rope splash on Zack, and they win the match, and that's it. There's no hot tag to Mojo Rawley. Pretty much done and dusted, kind of makes them look like goofs. The Usos retain this match. It was about as close as you could get to that infamous match from Raw way back in the day when Mr. Perfect beat Rick Martel during the commercial break and they had to play a replay. It was about as close as you get to that without totally doing that. So they win the match. The New Day come out, interrupt, and they challenge the Usos to a rematch for the tag titles at Battleground. So, wow, I guess we don't care about the Hype Bros anymore, do we? On the latest edition of Fashion, Vice Breezango are interrogating the Ascension, Connor and Victor, over who trashed their office from weeks ago. More funny stuff from all 4 of these guys, actually. They're trying to play good cop, and then Tyler Breeze goes, "We're both great cops." And there's a point where they're trying to offer the Ascension tickets to see Eddie Money in concert, and they almost take the tickets at first. Then there's a big thud. They see the office has been trashed again. They come back to the office, and they see the Ascension both each taking a ticket. It's just more funny stuff from these guys. Speaking of which, I've heard that they're going to do another season of Southpaw Regional Wrestling. I can't wait to see these guys in action there. Women's Championship on the line as Naomi defends against Lana in a match that was even shorter than what they had at Money in the Bank. Lana gets a cheap shot before the bell rings here. When the bell does ring, she hits the sit-out spinebuster right away. Naomi kicks out, gets her second win, hits Lana with a split-legged moonsault, and wins the match. And that's it. And what are they doing with Lana at this point? If you're going to make all these vignettes to build her up as a singles competitor and trying to make her look credible, 1, don't have her first 2 singles matches be for the title against Naomi unless she's going to win one of them. Or 2, A or B, don't make her finisher completely useless, because every time she's done it in a match so far, Naomi's kicked out. And it makes your finishing move look totally worthless. So if that's her big move, it's the one move she does or whatever, like, don't have people kick out of it. Make that be your finisher, make it count. Aiden English is in the ring singing a song. Why is it that Raw and SmackDown both have guys whose gimmick is they perform music and get booed? I don't know why both shows have to have that archetype. Anyway, Randy Orton interrupts him during the commercial break. He RKO's Aiden English. So when we come back from break, he's sitting in the ring, staging a sit-in. He says he's not going to leave until he gets what he wants, a rematch with Jinder Mahal. He says if he doesn't get what he wants, he's going to spend all day, every day, beating Jinder Mahal's ass. He's on the Jinder Mahal beaten ass tour, basically going coast to coast and around the world, destroying Jinder Mahal until he gets what he wants. Shane McMahon comes out and says, Orton, you can have your rematch at Battleground for the title, but Jinder Mahal picks the stipulation. Jinder Mahal comes out and announces, invoking the name of his personal hero, the great Khali. The stipulation match will be a Punjabi prison match, which the crowd surprisingly popped big for. Now, I know a lot of people kind of groaned like on social media when this match was announced. I don't mind the concept of the Punjabi prison match. People have always asked me, why didn't I put it in my worst gimmick matches countdown? It's because I like the concept of it. I just think history has shown us that when they put the people in the match, the matchups haven't been good. It was like Undertaker and Big Show and Batista and Great Khali. You know, 2 guys, you know, 2 pairs of guys that don't really work that well together to begin with. And when you throw this match in there, it makes it even worse. So I like the idea of 2 athletic guys like Mahal and Orton doing this match. I think it has the potential to be much better than what history has shown us. So I'm actually kind of optimistic about this match. Daniel Bryan's back in his office when he's met by AJ Styles. They're talking for a bit when suddenly, knock knock, who's there? America, 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 America. Kevin Owens comes in and interrupts. AJ Styles calls him Ron Burgundy's definition of San Diego. Again, I love these timely references the SmackDown writing team are cranking out on a weekly basis here. Daniel Bryan makes a match for next week, the Independence Day Battle Royal, where the winner gets to face Kevin Owens for the title, the U.S. title that is, at Battleground, so it's probably going to be AJ Styles winning. Sami Zayn taking on Baron Corbin in singles action. Shinsuke Nakamura is watching on the monitor in the back as it's going on. Baron ultimately wins with the end of days, and thank Christ for that, because of course last last 3 times these two have met up, Sammy's won. And of course, it's really weird the way they book Money in the Bank winners, because either just before they win the Money in the Bank or right after they win it, they just go on these huge losing streaks. And like Baron Corbin was kind of like that too. He never really won huge matches, and of course he lost 3 times to Sami Zayn, then he won the briefcase. So him winning here is a step in the right direction. It was a good win for him, so we'll see where it goes from there. But of course, it's obviously building up to a feud between him and Shinsuke, because Shinsuke's interviewed backstage after the fact, and he says Baron Corbin might be afraid of what he can do to Corbin. So we're going to see where this leads up. Main event time, Women's Money in the Bank 2 Electric Boogaloo. To me, the key difference between this match and the one of the pay-per-view was during the pay-per-view match, and I mentioned this in my review, how like all the women involved were just using the ladders to their advantage and just using them as props and weapons and really utilizing them to their full potential. Here on this show, in this week's edition of Money in the Bank, we didn't see a lot of that. We saw a lot of the women working around the ladders, things where they're doing spots, they're kind of looking around. Okay, no ladders in my immediate vicinity that I can accidentally hit. Okay, now we'll do the spot. Or there's the times where it's like they're in the middle of a move and like one of them will push the ladder out of the way so they can come back and do the slam on the mat and not hit the ladder. A lot of like creative ways to get around doing ladder stuff. Very interesting stuff here. There's a spot where like Carmella's climbing the ladder and all 4 of the other women grab a leg of the ladder and they move it and walk it over. They don't knock her over, they just move the ladder over, which that was very interesting. And then Carmella eventually does a crossbody to a couple of the women there. At one point, Natalya and Charlotte brawl their way to the crowd area, taking themselves out of the match effectively. You've got James Ellsworth magically reappearing into the arena again, climbing the ladder to try and repeat what happened at the pay-per-view, but Becky Lynch puts a stop to it. She decks Carmella, she knocks Ellsworth off the ladder, crotch first onto the top rope. She's climbing the ladder, but Carmella comes in with a steel chair, knocks her off on the leg with a chair, hits her in the back, then Carmella climbs the ladder, grabs the briefcase, wins again, and, you know, almost makes you feel like, wow, the whole controversy from last week was kind of pointless. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. I mean, what can I say about Miz TV? It was an awful segment. It was a brutal, ugly car crash of a segment. It was insane. It flew off the rails. It should be buried miles underneath the earth's crust and never to be mentioned again. It was bad. It was one of the worst things I've seen all year. We've seen some bad stuff this year alone. That being said, I think Raw had the stronger show this week, to be perfectly honest. I mean, yeah, the Miz TV stuff was a dumpster fire, but, you know, comparing the two shows, I think that neither really provided a lot of great matches, except for the main events for both shows. So I had to compare, you know, moments and builds to stuff. And I think that Raw delivered on both those categories over SmackDown, despite the trash that was Miz TV. I loved the stuff at the beginning with Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman. I loved the Goldust promo, even though I hated the in-ring stuff after it, and in fact it was kind of a bait and switch. I love the Enzo and Cass bit. I liked all the build with Heyman, Lesnar, and Joe. That was awesome. The main event, the women's gauntlet match, was great too. As far as SmackDown goes, again, I have to put Fashion Vice as a pro. I'm going to name this segment the Fashion Files Memorial Pros and Cons segment after the week that it's no longer one of my favorite things on SmackDown. I'm just going to name the whole thing after them because it's been consistently one of my pros ever since they've introduced it. The announcement of Punjabi Prison I thought was a positive, even though people are kind of sour on the idea. I think it has legs. And then the women's Money in the Bank, even though it was ultimately kind of like a zero gain at the end, I think it was still an exciting match. I just didn't care for the Hype Bros Usos. It was as kind of a lead into the New Day thing, like all this build for the Hype Bros. They're back together. They're fighting for the championship match they never got, and then they just lose. They're just kind of a foregone conclusion. They're just gone. Lana and Naomi was a waste of time as well. I think SmackDown kind of made you feel foolish for watching both this week's edition of SmackDown and Money in the Bank, because with these two big women's matches, it was like a zero-sum game. Nothing changed between the two shows. And it just kind of made you feel, well, if you watch one or the other, then fine. But if you watch them both, it's like, what was the point? So let me know what you thought about Raw and SmackDown this week in the comments section below. And don't forget to vote which show you thought was better in the gimmick in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it. Subscribe to Wrestling with Regret. Buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. And check out Patreon.com/WrestlingWithRegret for exclusive perks. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.